Good morning and thank you for joining me. My name is Marcus and I'm the pastor at the House of Hope Church in Peterborough, Ontario, and I would like to welcome you to this Easter Sunday message. Why is Easter Sunday, Resurrection Sunday, to give it a clue, why is that the absolute high point of the Christian calendar? Easter Sunday is the day that to those who are Christians, it shows the absolute approval and the absolute power of God on the message of Jesus Christ. If Jesus had been crucified and then simply buried and had never been seen or heard from again, to those of us in the Christian faith, well, it would hardly be worth trusting that particular message. Then all those things that he appeared to say and do, well, perhaps he was just mistaken. Maybe he was just a teacher with some of the truth, but ultimately not all of the truth. Perhaps he was not truly the Messiah. Now, to those of us in the Christian faith, we believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God who came to successfully complete the mission that he had, which was to bridge the disconnection between God and people. Now, by him being crucified, it looked like that was the end. It looked like, if you will, the powers of the world, the powers of darkness had overcome this kind and radical man named Jesus. But through the resurrection, through the empty tomb, and this morning I'm going to be referencing John 20, the Gospel of John chapter 20, and really mostly all of it. Now, in the Gospel of John, it tells of the Resurrection Sunday in the following way. Let's get right into it. So early that morning, Mary Magdalene makes her way to the tomb to pay her respects, and she's absolutely shocked. This is in John 20. She's absolutely shocked to see that the large stone covering up the tomb had been rolled away. So she runs back to get help. She meets Peter and the disciple, mysteriously known in the Gospel of John as the beloved disciple, and she says, "The stone's been rolled away and they've taken the body of the Lord. I don't know where he is." So Peter and the beloved disciple, what do? They run. They don't walk, they run to the tomb to see what's going on. Now the beloved disciple is a little faster, and he gets there first, and he's looking around outside, but Peter, being true to his character, he's not afraid to be outspoken, he's kind of impulsive, and he's charged first and asked questions later. Now Peter runs into the tomb, and all he can see is a tomb empty except for the grave clothes. And the beloved disciple finally makes it in too, and this kind of thing happens. All of a sudden they begin to get a little glimpse of maybe something else happened here. Maybe they didn't just steal the body. Everything looks oddly peaceful and orderly. And they got this peculiar sense, maybe beginning to recall some of the words of Jesus as well. For he had spoken, he had foreshadowed his death, but at the time, they didn't really understand it. Now, he had also foreshadowed that death would not be able to hold him captive. And this is now what they were left with. Now, Mary, she stayed outside the tomb, and she was just absolutely crushed and distraught. And it turns out that two angels were out there as well. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you crying? Why are you so upset?" And she said simply, "They have taken my Lord. They have taken the body of my Lord, and I don't know where they have put him." Now, as it turns out, that is where Jesus made his first appearance after the resurrection. And he was there, although she didn't quite recognize him. She thought he must have been the gardener or something. He wasn't the gardener. Now, when Jesus suddenly said her name, Mary, that is when she realized exactly who he was, and it began to dawn on her that something deeply miraculous, a sign, a wonder the likes of which had not been seen before, was done, and that Jesus, he truly is the Son of God. And she was not allowed to touch him at this point. And he told her to go back and to tell the others what she had seen. And it's exactly what she did. So later that evening, it tells us the disciples, now they had locked themselves, probably even barricaded themselves into the room where they were staying. They were afraid. They were afraid of what the authorities might do to them. now that they had found out that the body of Jesus was missing. This was a serious thing, especially since obviously the authorities had not been the ones to take away and hide the body as the disciples originally thought. So they were still afraid because things were unfolding, events were happening that were above their pay grade, quite frankly. And as they're all in this locked place, suddenly Jesus appears to them as well. And he just says a few choice words. And the ones that out of John 20 that I want to focus on is that Jesus said simply, in the midst of their fear, he said, "Peace be with you." Now, not all the disciples were there. One of them in particular was missing, and that was Thomas. And the story of Thomas and Jesus is what I would like to end with today, because I feel like, it speaks to me personally, and I think it also speaks to our modern age as well. But we have to think, skepticism, doubt, wanting to see things for ourselves and with our own eyes, that's nothing new. That's not an attitude that people have suddenly developed because we're now smarter and wiser and more knowledgeable in that sense. Doubt and wanting to see things, wanting to have tangible proof is something that happened right from the beginning, even among those that Jesus had been with and had been closest to. So let's see what happened with Thomas. So now it was about a week later, and the doubt of Thomas, the skepticism of Thomas had perhaps had a chance to harden, to solidify. Maybe he was even in a danger of infecting the others. Maybe they began to doubt themselves, but perhaps not. We don't know, but we do know that Thomas still had not believed. And the disciples were all together again, locked up again, obviously out of fear and worry. And suddenly, Jesus appeared now with Thomas there again, and the first thing he says is, "Peace be with you." And then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here, see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." And then all Thomas could do was to say, "My Lord and my God." And after this, Jesus said to him, "Because you have seen me, you have believed." But then Jesus said, "But blessed are those who have not yet seen me and have believed." And let me read now the last part of chapter 20 of the Gospel of John. It tells us Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book, but these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Yes, that's right. By believing in the name and in the life, in the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. If we believe in this, we have the gift. We may receive the gift of life in his name. Now, what exactly is life in his name? Jesus said before that if I be lifted up from the earth, I will draw all people unto myself. Jesus said you must be born again, which is to say you cannot keep living life in the way that you have been living life. Once you hear the message of God, you have the opportunity to be born again. Now, I know sometimes because of actions done in the name of Jesus, sometimes people have a very bizarre and peculiar and, in my opinion, twisted and distorted, unfortunate way of thinking of what it means to be born again. But I would ask you to consider that the words of Jesus, the words for starting off life in his name, are words that we need perhaps today more than we've ever needed them in our lifetime. Jesus said, "Peace be with you." And therein is part of that message of this new life. This new life in the name of Jesus is a life of peace. Now, I believe that doesn't mean that we won't have trouble in the world. We have to remember a short time before his crucifixion said, in the world you'll have trouble. In the world you will have tribulation. But he declared, but we can rejoice because he has overcome the world. Now, the resurrection shows that Jesus has, in fact, through the power of God, has overcome the world. the powers of darkness, the powers of fear, of destruction, are overcome by the peace of God in the lives of the believer. And that is Resurrection Sunday. That is the message of Jesus Christ. That is the purpose of what he has done. That by believing in what he did, by believing in the resurrection, that we may have life in his name. And I'm going to leave you with one last thing. That particular event, the crucifixion and the resurrection, those are the seed that has brought forth fruit for 2,000 years now. Jesus famously declared that unless a seed dies and goes into the ground, it cannot bear any fruit. And the crucifixion may have been the seed dying and going into the ground, but the resurrection is the fruit of the message of peace, the message of love, the message of reconciliation with God. That is the fruit of the resurrection. Thank you so much for joining me on Easter Sunday. May God bless you, and hope to see you again. Bye for now.